It's kind of a gray and dreary sort of day today as I record this podcast. And after I was done chores, I came up to the house and Mark and I thought, well, we'll just have a quick coffee and sit and chat for a little bit. So I cozied up on the couch and got my snuggly blanket and I put it on my lap. And of course, as soon as the blanket's down, Nike comes over and hops up on my lap, curls up in a little tiny heat warmer ball, lays down on my lap. And it's all very nice. Mark and I are sitting having our coffee. We're just chatting. And the dogs are just being the dogs, right? They're just kind of milling around. Most times they're just kind of laying down. Sometimes they'll get up and change position, move around the house, that sort of thing. Anyway, at one point in the one point this morning, Irie was walking through the living room. He starts heading over to Nike's crate. Nike's crate is in our living room, and we do feed her in that crate. Anyway, he starts sniffing around the front of the crate, and then he just starts softly pawing just at the front of the crate. And I thought to myself, oh man, Nike's probably dropped some food or something there, and it's just out of reach or just underneath the crate. And all of a sudden, I look down, and Nike just slowly raises her head and looks over at Irie. And I turned to Irie and I'm like, okay, that's enough of that then, bud. Move on. And he did. He came over. He came over to me and I was petting him. I'm like, you can come up on the couch if you want. And I invited him up on the couch and he curled up in a little ball. And it was Nike lowered her head back down and that was it. And it was the smallest of conversations. It was the tiniest little thing. But it did get me to thinking about the impact of tiny conversations, the little minuscule conversations that we have throughout the day, or maybe we don't have throughout the day, that really impact not only our relationship that we have with the dogs, but also the relationship that they have with each other. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today on the podcast. I thought I would talk about this idea of tiny conversations, big impact, how those conversations may or may not be influencing your relationship with your dogs. So let's get into it.
Are you worried that your fearful dog may hurt someone or something else? Do you have to prepare just to take a walk around the block? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I too had that dog. The one that you could only walk at nighttime when no one else was around. And I felt ashamed, and oh gosh, I wish that people could just see the dog that I know and love. I wanted the confidence to be able to walk my dog and not have to worry about who or what was around the corner. And I kept telling myself that if I just keep doing obedience drills and distracting with treats, that things would get better. Until I found the secret. Fear is not something that you can train out of a dog. In this podcast, you will find tips to help build your dog's confidence naturally, communication and understanding to foster that trust, and how to address those fear-based behaviors effectively so that you can enjoy a stress-free life with your dog. So if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners, grab your notebook, and let's get to it.
Hello, my fellow dog-loving friend. It's Tracy. Welcome to Beyond Obedience. I'm so glad that you are here with me today. I'm not going to lie. Today is a day that I would like to curl up and go back to bed. I could totally just snuggle back into bed with my dogs, put on a movie, and just listen to the soft rain in the background. Doesn't that sound nice? But I did not want to miss out on hanging out with you today. You're more important. You are more important to me because I have to say, as a sidebar, I was scrolling through Facebook, as you do, and I came across some posts from fellow dog trainers that apparently something is going down in the dog training industry, like something else, I should say. Something else is going down. People are angry. And I don't know what's going on. And I realized, I don't know what's going on. And my first thought was, I should figure out what's going on. And then I stopped myself because I was like, what are you doing, Tracy? Because yesterday was my day that I get to hang out in my communities. I have my live Q&A in the Fearful Dog community. And then I have my Zoom meeting for my Relationship Remedy peeps. And so it's a whole day of me just hanging out with the most incredible people. And I had so much fun yesterday. I was doing some leash demos, and then we're talking about in the Fearful Dog, we were talking about, instead of having a Q&A on Facebook, in December, we're going to have a Christmas party, and we're going to like have a Zoom, and people can put their videos in, and I'll do video analysis, and we can have cocktails and do demos. It's going to be so much fun. I'm actually super excited about the December one now. I'm like, it's going to be a party. I kind of love Christmas. I'm not going to lie. So anyway, my whole point though, is I digress. The point is that I had so much fun talking with my peeps, and I realized that I didn't know what was going on, and I need to keep it that way. I don't want to know. So if you know what's going on, if you're like someone that's like, oh no, I heard what's going on, I don't want to know. Please don't tell me. I would like to stay ignorantly blissful and just hang out with my dog people and and do my Christmas parties and do my Q&As and just be with the people that I love and hang out there. So, but I wanted to just do a shout out because I did have a couple of people reach out and appreciate a day in the life of Tracy. This one is going to go along the same vein, because I was thinking about it the other day, as we were, as I was thinking about, like, sharing a day in the life, that was, the big events. Like, it was the big stuff. Like, I shared with you, like, this is how I feed them. This is how I let them out. This is how we manage space when we have, dogs in heat and all of that stuff. And I think that stuff's really valuable. But this morning, when I had that interaction with Irie, where I was like, no, you need to move on, and seeing Nike's head go back down and everybody calm back down, I started to think about what else could happen had I not asked Irie to move away from the crate. And it was just an ask. It was like, hey, don't do that. Let's move away. And he gleefully obliged, because he's not offended by it. He wasn't offended by me telling him to move on. But what could have happened if I hadn't done that? I would suspect, if I hadn't moved Irie, I would suspect that Nike would have gotten up and would have gone down to her crate. Mostly probably to check to see what it was that he was sniffing, what was he figuring out that was there. But also there would have probably been a little bit of like, hey, this is my stuff, man, get out of here. I don't think anything would have happened. I don't think she would have, growled or anything like that. And I don't think Ari would have stood his ground or anything like that. But I have mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. Dogs don't hold grudges, but they do remember unfinished conversations. And I think over the years, one of the things that I have had the privilege of being able to do is to be an observer and a player in many canine conversations. And I've had the ability to, watch and observe my own dogs in my house. I've had a chance to observe my own pack when I had the kennel full of dogs and I had 19 of them. I've had the opportunity to observe daycare dogs, and the daycare is fascinating because they do form their own little temporary packs and their own little communities, right? Because and I'm sure anyone else that's run daycare, you'll know if somebody wants 2 days a week, it's always Tuesday and Thursday. If they want 3 days a week, you guessed it, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If they only wanted 1 day a week, it was always Wednesday, middle of the week, Wednesday. And there were, of course, the people that, their dogs needed, their dogs needed an outlet 5 days a week. So I had the ones that came Monday through Friday. But because of that, we had the same dogs. We had the Wednesday crew and we had the Tuesday crew and, that kind of a thing. And they do start to have, they become a temporary pack. They start to get to know each other and their personalities, and they start to have conversations. And I am, not naive to think that experience has helped shape my ability to not only observe canine conversations, but to know when to butt in and when to butt out. Like, when do I need to step in to be a part of this conversation, and should I just leave these dogs alone? And I think probably that's a question that maybe runs, if you have multiple dogs, maybe that runs through the back of your mind. Or even if you have a dog that plays with other dogs and you watch them play and you're like, is this a problem? Like, should I step in? Is this too much? You know? So if that's ever been you, like, should I step in or should I step out? This is a podcast episode for you, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about, what happened with Nike, and what could have happened, and how it is that those tiny little conversations that happen throughout the day add up to be big things later on. Unchallenged conversations end up being, I like to look at it this way. They start off as canine whispers. They end up being canine conversations that end up being canine arguments that eventually lead to toothy disagreements, right? And there are all sorts of little tiny indiscrepancies that happen throughout the day, little nods and nudges and space being taken, or toys being, taken, or a dog bed, being taken, that if we aren't really aware of it, if we're not seeing it as it unfolds, we will end up going, oh my gosh, out of nowhere, the dogs just started fighting. When in reality, it was never out of nowhere. I would say it's very rarely out of nowhere. Okay. And if it is out of nowhere, if it actually was something that came out of nowhere, my first thing would be to be looking at medical. Like, I would look at a medical reason for a dog to out of nowhere start acting like that to another dog. But there's not a lot of medical examples that I've seen in my time. Doesn't say, I'm not saying obviously there are medical issues that exist. I'm just saying that most times it's not that it happened out of nowhere. It's that you didn't see it happening. You didn't catch the minuscule little conversations. Let me give you an example so you know what I'm talking about. Let's say, for example, I am sitting on the couch and I'm, let's make me sound like I'm doing something smart. I'm reading Dickens. Okay, I'm on my phone. So let's say I'm on my phone and I'm doing my own thing. And there's like a dog lying in front of me, just on the floor doing their own thing. And another dog walks into the room. And the moment that that dog walks into the room, the first dog that's lying at my feet immediately gets up beside me on the couch, lays down beside me, and touches me, either right beside me or puts a paw across my leg. If that happens, I'm not thinking, oh, look at the dog wants to snuggle with me. I know that that has nothing to do with me. Well, it does and it doesn't. It was a canine conversation. That conversation was between the dog lying on the floor and the dog that walked into the room. And the dog that was lying on the floor that gets up and lays beside me and puts his like leg on me is saying, just so you know, I was here. Maybe it means this is mine, right? And so I have to be very discerning on those conversations because, one, I don't like to be used that way. You either love me or you don't, but you don't use me as part of your talking points to other dogs. You know what I'm saying? But I have to be kind of discerning about that, especially if, in the cases where, and this happened to me all the time, I would see this in daycare. Like if I was sitting on the picnic table out in the yard, just mind my own business, watching like dogs play, and one dog comes up to say hello to me and another dog comes up and then levels up and goes behind me on the picnic table. That's not about me. I'd like to think that it is. I'm like, all these dogs love me. It wasn't about me. It was literally saying, oh yeah, you think you like her? I like her like this. That's what it ends up being. And those little conversations, if left unchecked, become problems later on. They actually become actual issues. So one of the things that is a skill set that you can practice, and we're always practicing, this isn't something, I think a little bit of it for me is innate just because I'm naturally a very quiet person, right? I'm the introvert at the party that's in the corner petting the cat, watching everyone else engage and going, those two are probably going to break up tonight. Like that's who I am. So I think some of it is just I'm naturally quiet and observant of body language over what's being said. So very intuitive, all of that sort of stuff. But this is a skill set that you can start to develop, right? And the way that we start that, honestly, is to just be quiet. Because remember, if you're talking, you're not listening. So it's just a matter of being a little bit more quiet, a little bit more observant, and a little bit more how interesting. That's all that is. A little bit more quiet, a little bit more observant, and a little bit more how interesting. Because what you'll start to see is, especially if we're using how interesting, what you'll start to see is like, what happened when that dog came into the space? What did this dog do? How interesting. I wonder why. Right? What happens when I move into space? Does my dog back up or does my dog push forward? How interesting. I wonder why. Right? You're going to start to develop an innate curiosity of just observing your dog's behavior. It's one of the things I talk the most about, I think, in my programs, is just this idea of being quiet, being with. The idea that the exercise be with is literally just an exercise of observation and stillness. It's just quieting everything for a moment and seeing what's going on, because your dogs are talking all the time. Everything is a conversation. When I walk through a doorway or threshold and one dog races through to get through in front of me or in front of another dog, that's a conversation. It may not be a bad conversation. I'm not saying it's going to be trouble, but I am saying it's a conversation. How interesting. I wonder why. Right? I got up on the, I sat on the bed and one dog got down off the bed as soon as I got on the bed. Well, how interesting. I wonder why. That's all it is. And you may not have all the answers. And I'm not certainly saying that I have all the answers, but I do know that there is sort of a gut instinct that I have that I do tend to follow a little bit more. And I have to thank my mentor, Nelson Hodges, for that, because he was one of the first ones that talked about this idea of, how as humans, we live in a world now where we've almost learned to turn off that. We've turned off our intuition. We turn off that gut feeling. We question it. And I think this is a thing that women do more than men, right? We're like, oh, I'm sure they're being nice, or I'm sure they didn't mean it that way. Like we're polite and we're all of the things, but we've learned to turn off our intuition and our gut. And for me this morning, when I saw Nike's head lift up and for her to look at Irie like that, I thought this could turn into something else if we let it, right? This could make Nike feel more possessive around her crate. And I need Nike to know that I see it and I can handle it so that she doesn't have to. And that's the ultimate goal. And some of the things that we do to become good leaders to our dogs is to be able to see canine conversations, for our fearful dogs to see threat levels, and to let our dogs know under no uncertain circumstances that not only do I see it, but I can handle it, right? I don't need Nike telling Irie off. Now listen, flat out honesty, Nike could tell Irie off. And I think Irie would listen to her. Because bitches be crazy, right? Male dogs tend to listen to assertive females. They're just like, I'm not going to argue with you. Why would I? So I don't necessarily think that anything is going to ever happen between Nike and Irie. But I need Nike to know that I see it, I responded to it so she doesn't have to react. Because what I don't want is a snarly little Jack Russell telling everybody off, right? I don't want that for Nike. So I'm going to make sure she knows I see it. I see it. I handled it. You don't have to. And that's exactly what happened. She lifted her head. She was like, I'm not sure I like that. I sent Irie away and she put her head back down. Then on top of it, I invited Irie up on the couch and they laid together with me for about 25 minutes before Irie got too hot and got down. So everybody's happy. We're still being pro-social. Everybody's like doing their thing. But who knows what would have happened in time had I not had that tiny, minuscule conversation, that next to nothing conversation that just like, hey, keep moving, right? Who knows? Wouldn't I tell you, it wouldn't happen today, and it probably wouldn't happen tomorrow or a week from now, but maybe in a month from now, if I kept letting Irie kind of poke around her crate, she starts getting more and more defensive about it. Now I'm going to create a Jack Russell that doesn't want anyone near a crate, right? And understandably so. Anyway, does that help? Is that useful? This is me just doing podcast. Is that helpful? Like, did you enjoy that? Let me know what you think or what your thoughts are on Tiny Conversations' big impact. And this idea that, just to recap, it's a skill that you can practice. And the way that we do that is we just be quiet, be observant, and how interesting. And we start to see it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, my friend. It's a rainy day. I didn't really know what we were going to talk about today, but we're just chatting. Let me know how you feel. If you like this kind of episode, please be sure to give me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast. It really does help to push the podcast out. If you like this as well, share it. Share it with your friends. Let other people know about the podcast. And if you're someone who's like, the dog training is getting crazy and I don't know what to do, come on over. Come on over. The water's warm over here. I am loving this community, and I would love for you to be a part of the community as well. You can join us for free at Living Beyond Obedience and on Facebook. That's on Facebook, Living Beyond Obedience. Or if you want a little bit more hand holding, a little bit more, insight on some more of these canine conversations, consider coming over to the Fearful Dog Fearless Framework. Become part of that community. If you come over before December, you can come to the Christmas party. We're going to have a Christmas party. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, I hope to see you there. I hope this finds you well. And as always, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are. Because your dog thinks that you are amazing. And so do I. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now. And one more thing, this podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and should not replace hands-on professional training. If you are really struggling with your dog, please be sure to reach out to a professional in your area. Okay, I think that's it. Bye for now.